The morning of January 15, 1947, dawned cold and overcast in Los Angeles. The city, usually bustling with life and energy, seemed to be wrapped in a shroud of eerie stillness. The streets were quieter than usual, as if the city itself sensed the impending horror that would soon unfold. A young mother, Betty Bersinger, was taking a morning stroll with her 3-year-old daughter. The pair walked hand in hand, enjoying the crisp morning air, unaware that their peaceful routine was about to be shattered. Betty, like many others, was simply trying to start her day on a positive note, perhaps planning errands or thinking about breakfast. Their walk took them past a vacant lot on the edge of Leimert Park, a seemingly ordinary patch of land in the sprawling city. This lot, like many others in the area, was often overlooked, a forgotten space amidst the urban sprawl. But on this particular morning it would become the center of a gruesome discovery, but something on the ground, something unnatural and horrifying, shattered the normalcy of their day. Betty's eyes were drawn to a pale figure lying in the grass. At first, she thought it might be a discarded mannequin, a cruel prank perhaps. But as she drew closer, the horrifying reality became clear. It was the body of a young woman, her naked form severed at the waist and carefully posed. The scene was meticulously arranged, almost as if the perpetrator wanted their work to be discovered and examined. The body lay in 2 distinct halves, a sight so grotesque that it would haunt those who saw it for years to come. The woman's skin was drained of color, a ghastly pallor that amplified the brutality of the scene. Her lifeless body, devoid of any warmth or vitality, stood in stark contrast to the vibrant life she once had. The cold, pale skin told a story of violence and suffering, a silent testament to the horrors she endured. Her face was marred by a gruesome Glasgow smile, a grotesque cut extending from the corners of her mouth towards her ears. This macabre detail added a chilling layer to the already horrifying scene, transforming her face into a permanent twisted grin. It was a cruel and sadistic mark left by her killer, a signature of their brutality. The image was seared into the minds of the officers who arrived at the scene, a macabre tableau that would forever be known as the discovery of the Black Dahlia. The officers, seasoned and hardened by years on the force, were nonetheless shaken by the sheer savagery of the crime. It was a scene that would haunt their dreams and fuel their determination to find the perpetrator. The victim was soon identified as 22-year-old Elizabeth Short, an aspiring actress who had come to Hollywood seeking fame and fortune. Elizabeth, with her striking beauty and dreams of stardom, had hoped to make a name for herself in the glittering world of Hollywood. But instead, she became known for the tragic and brutal end she met. But her dreams had been brutally snuffed out, leaving behind a mystery that would captivate and confound investigators for decades to come. The promise of a bright future was replaced by the dark shadow of her untimely death, a stark reminder of the dangers that lurked beneath the surface of the city of dreams. The discovery of Elizabeth Short's body sent shockwaves through the city of Los Angeles, exposing the dark underbelly that lurked beneath its glittering facade. The news spread like wildfire, capturing the attention of a city and a nation. The Black Dahlia case became a symbol of the hidden dangers and the often overlooked perils that lay in wait in the pursuit of fame and fortune. Elizabeth Short, the girl who would become forever known as the Black Dahlia, was a captivating enigma. Her life, filled with dreams and aspirations, was tragically cut short, leaving behind a legacy shrouded in mystery and darkness. Born in Boston, Massachusetts in 1924, she harbored dreams of silver screen stardom. From a young age, Elizabeth was enchanted by the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, often imagining herself as one of the stars she admired on the big screen. She relocated to Los Angeles, drawn by the allure of Hollywood and the promise of a glamorous life. The City of Angels, with its bright lights and endless possibilities, seemed like the perfect place for her to make her dreams come true. With her striking looks, jet black hair, piercing blue eyes, and a captivating smile, Elizabeth seemed destined for success. Her beauty was undeniable, and she quickly became a fixture in the Hollywood social scene, attending parties and mingling with aspiring actors and filmmakers. But life in Hollywood was far from the fairy tale Elizabeth envisioned. The competition was fierce, and the path to stardom was fraught with challenges. Despite her best efforts, she struggled to land significant roles, often finding herself on the fringes of the industry. She found herself adrift in a city of broken dreams, struggling to make ends meet and facing constant rejection in her pursuit of acting roles. The harsh reality of Hollywood began to take its toll on her, both emotionally and financially. She worked odd jobs, frequented nightclubs, and yearned for the spotlight, her life a stark contrast to the glamorous world she craved. The nightlife of Los Angeles offered a temporary escape, but it was never enough to fill the void left by her unfulfilled dreams. In the years leading up to her death, Elizabeth's life became increasingly troubled. The pressures of her transient lifestyle, coupled with the constant disappointments, began to weigh heavily on her. She drifted from place to place, her transient lifestyle a reflection of her unfulfilled aspirations and personal struggles. Each move was a desperate attempt to find stability and success, but it always seemed just out of reach. She wrote letters to her family, painting a rosy picture of her life in Hollywood, but behind the facade of success, darkness was closing in. Her letters were filled with hope and optimism, but they masked the reality of her struggles and the loneliness she felt. Elizabeth's final months were a blur of fleeting connections and missed opportunities. She met many people, but none could offer the stability or support she desperately needed. Her dreams of stardom were slipping away, replaced by a growing sense of despair. She was last seen alive on January 9, 1947 at the Biltmore Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. The hotel, a symbol of the city's grandeur, was the last place she was seen before her tragic end. 6 days later, her mutilated body was discovered in that vacant lot, her dreams and aspirations reduced to a gruesome crime scene. The city that once held so much promise for Elizabeth had become the backdrop for one of the most infamous unsolved murders in history. The discovery of Elizabeth Short's body sent shockwaves through the Los Angeles Police Department. It was a crime unlike any they had seen before, both in its brutality and its brazenness. The body was found in a vacant lot, severed in two, and posed in a manner that suggested a macabre display. The police were immediately under immense pressure to solve the case, not just from the public, but from the media that had latched onto the story with fervor. The sheer brutality of the crime, coupled with the victim's Hollywood aspirations, made it a media sensation. Newspapers across the country splashed the gruesome details across their front pages, and the public couldn't get enough. The story of a young, aspiring actress meeting such a horrific end in the city of dreams was too tantalizing to ignore. And the pressure to find the killer was immense. The police department was inundated with tips, leads, and theories, each one more outlandish than the last. Detectives worked around the clock, driven by the need to bring justice to Elizabeth Short and to quell the growing public hysteria. Detectives swarmed the crime scene, meticulously combing the area for any shred of evidence that could lead them to the perpetrator. They searched for fingerprints, fibers, anything that could provide a clue. The scene was scoured multiple times, each pass more thorough than the last. But the killer had been careful. The investigation was like a puzzle with missing pieces, a labyrinth of dead ends and false leads. Every promising lead seemed to evaporate upon closer inspection, leaving the detectives frustrated and desperate. They mapped out connections, interviewed witnesses, and followed up on every tip, no matter how small. The killer had meticulously cleaned the crime scene, leaving little behind to identify them. It was clear that this was not a spur-of-the-moment act of violence, but a carefully planned and executed crime. The lack of evidence was both baffling and infuriating for the investigators. The cause of death was determined to be hemorrhage and shock due to concussion of the brain and lacerations of the face. The medical examiner's report painted a grim picture of the final moments of Elizabeth Short's life. The brutality of the injuries suggested a deep-seated rage, but the precision of the cuts indicated a level of skill and control. The brutality of the murder pointed to a crime of passion, but the meticulousness of the crime scene suggested a chilling level of premeditation. The detectives were torn between these two conflicting profiles of the killer. Was it someone who knew Elizabeth personally, or a stranger with a dark obsession? Detectives interviewed dozens of individuals, from Elizabeth Short's acquaintances to known criminals, desperate for any clue that could unravel the mystery. They questioned friends, family, and anyone who had crossed paths with her in the days leading up to her death. Each interview brought new information, but also new questions. Theories abounded, each more sensational than the last. Some speculated that she had fallen victim to a Hollywood power player, while others believed it was the work of a deranged fan. The media fueled these theories, each headline more lurid than the last, adding to the frenzy surrounding the case. Was the murder the work of a spurned lover, a jealous rival, or a deranged individual with a macabre fascination for the macabre? The possibilities seemed endless, and each new theory only added to the confusion. The detectives had to sift through the noise to find the truth. The investigation was further complicated by a series of false confessions. Individuals seeking attention or with their own motives came forward, claiming responsibility for the murder. Each confession had to be meticulously checked and cross-referenced with the evidence, wasting valuable time and resources. The Black Dahlia case, thrust into the spotlight by the media, seemed to attract individuals seeking notoriety. The more sensational the case became, the more people wanted to be a part of it, even if it meant falsely confessing to a heinous crime. Men came forward claiming responsibility for the murder, their confessions riddled with inconsistencies and easily disproven. Each false confession was a setback, diverting attention from the real killer and adding to the frustration of the investigators. Each false confession only deepened the mystery, adding another layer to the already complex case. The detectives were left to untangle a web of lies, half-truths, and dead ends, all while the real killer remained at large. The Black Dahlia case was becoming one of the most challenging and perplexing investigations in the history of the LAPD.